Every year, April 11 is World Parkinson's Day, and every year we try to raise awareness about what is Parkinson's disease. And of course, it is believed that not enough is known, and not enough people have adequate understanding of what it's like to live with Parkinson's disease. This morning, as you have seen in the welcoming slide, two ladies join us to talk about it. Omotola Thomas is founder and director of Parkinson's Africa, joins us virtually from London, as well as Mori Desalu, who is founding trustee at Adeomi Desalu Parkinson's Foundation. She's also CEO, Risk Watch Insurance Brokers Limited, also joins us virtually, but from Atlanta. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me begin with you, Ms. Thomas. It definitely is something concerning. For those who may not even know what we are talking about here, could you give us an idea of what Parkinson's disease is?
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me. Parkinson's disease, very simply put, is a neurological condition that affects a part of the brain, the part of the brain that controls movement. But movement is not the only function that is impacted in Parkinson's. Parkinson's affects a person's mood, cognition, sleep, and a number of other different functions. Typically, the symptoms they start very slowly, and then they gradually progress over time. There are about over 30 symptoms of Parkinson's, but the most common ones are tremor. Well, maybe not the most known. Recognizable ones are tremor, rigidity, and bradykinesia, which is slowness of movement. But there are other symptoms that people, my tremors are quite prominent. Some people can see it. But other people, there are other symptoms that people can't see, like anxiety, depression, sleep impairment. And these are often quite debilitating, even sometimes more debilitating than the symptoms that you can see.
Let me ask Madam Desalu. I don't know, from your experience having been in this space for a while, what are the things that people know about it? What are the perhaps common misconceptions about it? I mean, having listened to Ms. Thomas, one can understand that it is quite debilitating indeed. What are those things misconceptions that people have about this particular condition?
Thank you. I think that I would like to focus on how we Africans interpret the sickness. People see a patient who has tremors, and because we are such religious people, we have this whole, it must be some witchcraft or it must be a curse, and therefore move away from the person. Now, educated people are better informed, therefore relate better. But we realize that the people, my husband lived with Parkinson's, and people like him and Omotola are living in a civilized society, and they're living with people who have knowledge. The majority of people in Nigeria who may be afflicted with Parkinson's disease are often treated as a pariah because they do not understand what is happening with the person, why that person can't hold a glass of water and drink, and the water shakes and goes away, why the person is walking in a particular way, why the person is talking in a way that people can't hear them very well, without realizing that these are all symptoms of something bigger than what it is that they can see.
How prevalent is this condition in Nigeria? No, it's for Ms. Desalu. Please go ahead.
Sorry.
Oh, Miss Thomas is the expert in the subject of statistics. She's done a lot more research. I've come in from the angle of a caregiver of a patient. I'm new. I'm her student, and I'm learning a lot more about how Parkinson's is in Africa. So Motola will have a better answer to that question.
Okay, good. So since you are the student, let's talk to the teacher then. Yes, Ms. Thomas, how prevalent is this condition in Nigeria?
Oh, Miss Thomas is the expert in the subject of statistics. She's done a lot more research. I've come in from the angle of a caregiver of a patient. I'm new. I'm her student, and I'm learning a lot more about how Parkinson's is in Africa. So Motola will have a better answer to that question. Okay, good. So since you are the student, let's talk to the teacher then. Yes, Ms. Thomas, how prevalent is this condition in Nigeria?
I would hardly consider myself a teacher, but we don't have enough research. We haven't conducted enough research studies in Nigeria and in other parts of Africa to properly understand what these numbers are. Generally speaking, I think in populations over the age of 60, the rate of Parkinson's, I think it's usually about 4%, but that's just a general guide. But one of the things that we're trying to do at Parkinson's Africa is to raise more awareness about the fact that we don't have enough studies. We need more studies. But I do know that there are a number of organizations that are actively working currently to rectify this issue, to conduct prevalence studies and understand better the number of people that are affected in Nigeria and across the rest of Africa.
One thing we do know is that it is the fastest growing neurological condition, and that alone is startling. But, a lot of people don't quite understand this. For me, my first introduction, it would seem, was about 20 years ago. And thank God I had a medical practitioner beside me who's a family member who actually explained what it means and all of that to me. But for a lot of people, they don't have that luxury. You were diagnosed with Parkinson's since you were 35 years old. We'll talk about, some of the predisposing factors and how that just, is quite opposite. But take us through your world. Let us understand how it feels, because a lot of Nigerians, a lot of people generally don't know. So can you just walk us through your world? What is it like living with Parkinson's disease?
Parkinson's disease can be a very challenging illness to live with, to manage. But I am very fortunate. I live in a part of the world where my access to healthcare, my access to medication, and everything that I need to manage and live well with this disease, my access to these things are independent of my socioeconomic status. What that means is that if I need to see a neurologist, a physiotherapist, any specialist, or I need medication, I have access to it. There are so many other people in less developed parts of the world that don't have access to these things, and this is one of the reasons we're trying to raise more awareness about this condition. But in terms of my experience with Parkinson's, as you can tell, my Parkinson's is tremor dominant, but I've learned to live with it. I think I am a glass half full type of person. So I try to see the opportunities in challenging situations, and I believe that that's what I've been able to do with Parkinson's, is to take the negative, which is a very difficult and challenging illness to deal with, and turn it around, try to use that drive and that motivation to do something for others, to hopefully inspire other people, not to let the stigma or the shame or the whatever it is they may feel about looking odd or looking weird, not to let that get them down, to be able to live your life to the fullest and to live your life as best as you can.
I must be honest, going through your social media posts, I could sense that positivity, and I must say it is remarkable. Just going through that alone was a lifter for me. But when you talk about stigma, we'll talk about the work you're doing, how you're trying to help people and all of that. But, the point you made about stigma, for a lot of people, once they see a person living with Parkinson's disease, the first response is probably to look away and think, I don't want to deal with this. But when people look at you, what do you want them to think? What do you want them to see, really?
I'm a human being. I do have tremors, but I'm okay when people see me, if they ask me, if I need help or if there's something they can do to assist me. I think what I have a problem with is people just staring and just staring at you. So I guess, in answer to the question, I want people to see the human being behind the tremors, behind the shakes, behind the slowness of movement and the rigidity and all the other symptoms that may present itself.
We'll talk about those interventions that you've been trying to bring up, but let me go back to Mrs. Desalu. Talking about this stigma, a major stakeholder in this are the caregivers. And there are those who will find themselves in this situation, who have found themselves and who will find themselves in this situation. What coping mechanisms would you prescribe for them, especially the caregivers, such as family members, such as yourself, or even the medical caregivers in the hospitals?
I'm going to say something that I've repeated and may sound selfish. When you sit on the plane, they tell you that you should put on your own seat belt before you look after the child. They tell you that when the masks come down, you should put yours on and be safe. So it's important that the caregiver is aware of how important they are to the life of the patient. Therefore, you look after yourself because you must not fall apart. So that's important. Your own health and your own checks and everything to do with your mental health, your emotional health must not fall apart because the patient needs you and you have to be strong. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to empathize, which is very difficult. When you're dealing with a stubborn patient in particular, my husband was an accomplished engineer and mathematician. He was a teacher and a very strong personality. Therefore, it was a very difficult season for him. So things like you cannot drive because it's not safe. Those are battles you're facing. There were battles like, I don't want to take this medicine. And we know that if he doesn't take the medicine, he doesn't get the dopamine. Therefore, it's the caregiver's job to love them while being a good cop and a bad cop. You love, and at the same time, you're firm. Then, these things will put strain on a marriage. One of the things that comes with this is paranoia, where they don't trust the people around them. And when they don't trust you and you get the vibe that this person doesn't trust me, you can actually fall off the apple wagon because you're feeling unappreciated. And it's important that whether you are appreciated or you're not appreciated, you do what you have to do because that is what the caregiving task involves. Then keeping all the family involved in what is going on. Our children were long distance mainly. I had just one in the house and really just trying to keep up with communication with everybody to let them at least know what's going on and then calling for help when you need help. There were points at which I felt, come on children, I need help here. And 2 people flew in from the US and England and were there. And I could say to them, okay, I'm not doing this part of it anymore. You take charge. And so sometimes you need to transfer the bad cop role to another member of the team so that you are not the only person who's being totally strict with them. With the caregivers in the hospital, it's exactly the same thing. It is just empathy. We had home care. Therefore, we had 2 nurses on duty at a time looking after him towards the end. In the last year and a half, almost 2 years before he passed, we had home care. And it was important for those nurses who worked with him to understand and to be patient. And so you as the caregiver also have the role of now making sure the nurses are happy. And so your family has grown and making sure everybody is happy so that the patient is happy. But an important thing I will bring up is remembering that the patient is a normal person and the patient can think. And the fact that there is a neurodegenerative disease doesn't mean that they're brain damaged. Therefore, you must speak to this person the same way you would normally. And then if you're going out, take them if they want to go. We have a habit in Africa, I don't know, well, let's not say in Africa, in Nigeria, in the southern part, to keep patients at home. So the person has something wrong with them. Therefore, it's inconvenient for us to get the patient ready. It's inconvenient for us to take that patient out. And that social interaction, the fellowship with other people is so critical to healing that we must remember that this person is ill with something that's slowing them down physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, they need to be fed. Therefore, they must be out as well with you. And it shouldn't be something that's embarrassing, because I was asked questions. There are times I've been out, we've been to a wedding, and somebody has said, why did you bring him? And I'm like, who are we talking about here? This is my husband. This is something that concerns him. These are his friends. Why wouldn't he come? And, and these were supposedly intelligent people who did not understand what it means for a patient to be alive and trying as much as possible to live a normal life, and then people are trying to switch off the lights around them.
Still with you, madam. This condition, upon diagnosis, is certainly a lifestyle shifter from what you have said. Their lives don't remain the same, so to speak. Do they stop working immediately? Do they stop doing the things that they normally do? And how easy is it for them to accept the new reality and accept care from caregivers such as yourself?
When I tell my husband's story, I always say that the tenacity, the effort, the resilience, the skill sets from his former life are what kept him through to the end. Because he wasn't going to stop working. He was going to work. So it was for the caregiver to make sure that he had care when he went away without feeling like he was being nannied by me, to make sure that he could still function. Even when he was out in his office, he kept going to his office until, almost the end. He would want to go out and he would go. It depends on the personality of the patient. If this was a very active person, they will keep working. And Motola is here. I have told her enough times on the phone, go to bed. I say, okay, time out. You need to go, you need to rest. And she's like, oh, Auntie, I'm okay. And then, I always say it's important to look at the winning team. And I think of Michael J. Fox when I think of Motola. Michael J. Fox was diagnosed with young onset Parkinson's at 29. He's 63 years old today. And the fire in him is as much or more than the fire that he had when he was 29. He took on the challenge and decided he was going to fight. He was going to work for a cure. And if I remember correctly, he's raised over $800 million for research in Parkinson's, and they're still reaching out all over the world to see which are the areas they haven't ventured into where there may be a cure that is lying. And who knows if this cure is in Africa? We've got all these leaves in the forest. People talk to them. We watch African Magic and they say, choose this and it works. We don't know if the answer to Parkinson's is in those forests, but we must go out and find out.
Honestly, I love the angle which you brought in right there, and clearly lots of things to explore there. But let me go back to Omotola. And again, I love the bond which both of you have, and I think that's something that I've noticed across board with the different organizations in Nigeria, Africa, and the world at large. But Omotola, just quickly, we'll talk about your work, which I'm really itching to hear about. But this was sort of discovered, in some sense, over 200 years ago by James Parkinson. Eventually was named after him. But it would seem as though research is still not quite clear, especially about what causes this and the cure for it. So what exactly predisposes people to Parkinson's, and what are the management techniques? I know maybe not a cure, but treatment or management, as it were.
So, thank you very much. You've rightfully said nobody really truly understands what causes Parkinson's. Scientists and researchers are beginning to find a link between genetic factors, environmental factors, and aging. Age is the biggest risk factor for Parkinson's. The older you get, the more at risk you are for getting Parkinson's. But they are finding the correlation between toxic chemicals and, like I mentioned earlier, genetic factors. Was there a second question?
Yes, the question is about management, about
right.
How you deal with it.
Right. Exercise is probably the most important thing a person with Parkinson's can engage in. Studies have found that even, I think, as little as 2.5 hours of exercise a week has been shown to delay the progression, not stop it, but delay the progression of Parkinson's disease. I try to exercise, for at least 4 to 5 times a week for about 20 to 30 minutes a day, and I find that, I think, with the exception of my tremors, which I've had these tremors since the onset. It really does help with my mood. It helps with rigidity, and it helps with sleep and with anxiety and many of the other symptoms. Nutrition also plays a role. There is no one diet that researchers or scientists or the medical community agrees on that is best to manage Parkinson's. But generally speaking, eating a healthy diet with fruits and vegetables, or reducing sugar intake, these are all things that have been known, that have been shown to help, not cure, but to help with managing Parkinson's disease.
If I could just add what you said earlier, that positive outlook, that glass half full outlook which you have to life, I think it's also phenomenal. But let's talk about the work you do. It's quite interesting that some people get diagnosed with diseases and they go into self-destruct mode, and they sulk, rightly so, because it can be very impacting to discover that. But for you, you're going all out to help people. Can you tell us about the work Parkinson's Africa is doing, has done, and what you hope to achieve?
Yes, and just one quick point to the last question, which you brought up. Loneliness and isolation has been found to increase Parkinson's symptoms, to worsen Parkinson's symptoms. I just wanted to add that because of the end, when you talked about having a positive outlook. I think being out there, like Mr. Desalu said, being able to take the late Dr. Desalu out with her, I think those are things that are very important. On the question of Parkinson's Africa, when I got diagnosed, we had just moved to the UK from South Africa, my family and I. And I was in the UK, had access to everything that I needed, but I still found that there was a void in the system. While there was support, there wasn't support for the unique challenges that I, as an African, faced. No one was there to be able to help me understand or navigate the loss that I felt when I lost the ability to braid my daughter's Afro-coily kinky hair or to manage my own hair. Nobody was able to help me or explain to me how to deal with, the sadness and the loss that I felt when I couldn't make foods like eba or pounded yam, foods that I grew up, eating. Nobody could, like growing up in Nigeria, if you had a roof over your head, you had water, you had clothes, you were supposed to be happy and okay. But here I was going through serious levels of anxiety and depression and not understanding it and not being able to talk to anybody about it. So there was a void in the system, and I wanted to do something for other people who get diagnosed after me so that they didn't have to experience that same void. And that was the inspiration that drove me to establish Parkinson's Africa. What is Parkinson's Africa? Parkinson's Africa is a registered charity. We're registered in the UK and we're registered in Nigeria, that was established to support and empower Africans impacted by Parkinson's disease. And we do this through a number of ways. We run awareness and education campaigns to improve the level of the people's knowledge and understanding of Parkinson's disease so that we can reduce these misconceptions and reduce the associated stigma that surrounds Parkinson's disease. We also create educational materials and we provide support to not only Africans impacted by Parkinson's disease, but the local organizations that are on ground that are actually doing the work. We provide support to them. Sometimes that can be financial support, that can be, helping them with resources. And I think most importantly, we are working with several different organizations to provide free access to Parkinson's medications for patients who are unable to afford it. One of those organizations is the FAR Foundation. who is currently sponsoring over 200 patients at Luce with access to free Parkinson's medication. We're also working with the World Parkinson's Program, which is a charity based in Canada. They are supporting patients in Ghana, in Cameroon, and in Uganda. What we really want to do is to change the landscape, transform the landscape of Parkinson's disease across Africa into societies where those of us who are affected have the access to the information, resources, support, and care that we need to be able to live our best lives with this disease.
And what kind of responses have you received so far, Ms. Thomas? What kind of pushback, what kind of reception, what kind of challenges, what kind of encouragement have you received since this work started for you?
We haven't received, I wouldn't say that we've received pushback. We've gotten, particularly here in the UK where I live, we've gotten quite a lot of support from the international Parkinson's community. We've received some grants from some foundations here to continue to do the work that we do, to offer support services. In terms of challenges, I think the biggest challenge will be getting people to understand that, to getting away from this mentality of Parkinson's being witchcraft or a spiritual issue. In so many parts of Africa, we hear horrendous, horrible stories about how people are ostracized, mistreated, abused because of this illness. So I think our biggest challenge is trying to, constantly trying to change the narrative and change people's perception of what this illness is.
Let me ask,
money.
Go on. Oh, money. Okay. It's actually very important. It's the will of the gospel. Well, Mrs. Desalu, let me ask you this. Talking about encouraging people now, about doing the needful concerning the issue. What would you be saying to corporate organizations where, for whatever reason, their staff, is diagnosed and the person takes a report to the office? What kind of responses usually come, and what would you be encouraging the organizations to do?
We would encourage the organizations to ensure that their medical insurance, their health management organization takes this as one of the illnesses that will be covered. Ensure that there is access to neurological care, which could be expensive in Nigeria, although a lot of it is in the teaching hospitals, but it's the medication. Motola has talked about the Farah Foundation, and I got involved with her and the Farah Foundation when we started talking about how to provide medication free for patients that could not afford it. And I got that rude shock finding out that it costs $15 a month for each patient. And I have a lot of respect for the Farah Foundation, who are paying for 200 patients a month. And if you run the numbers, it's astronomical. If an employer has a staff that is diagnosed, it's important that they ensure that the insurance they have or the health management program they have will support the medication, because that person's brain is no longer producing dopamine and they need the dopamine, and that dopamine is expensive to buy a medication.
Okay. Well, it's actually quite a lot. Today is just a conversation starter as far as I'm concerned. Very, very quickly, Ms. Thomas, is there a plan for any program today? You have 30 seconds.
We have awareness activities going on across Uganda, Ghana, Cameroon, Ethiopia, and then there is a Sit to Stand challenge. If people go to www.parkinsonsafrica.com, you will see it on the homepage. We're trying to encourage people to do as many sit to stands as possible to get people talking about Parkinson's and exercising.
Okay. I was going to protest that I didn't hear Nigeria on that list, but let me leave it. Let me leave it there for now. Omotola Thomas is founder and director Parkinson's Africa, as well as Mrs. Maureen Desalu, who is founding trustee Adewumi Desalu Parkinson's Foundation. Ladies, thank you so much for your time and the education you've given us today.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Well, it's not over. We're back after now.